Hi, my name is Angel Sarah, and today I'll be talking about my journey with my gender and sexuality. So in general, I just like to use the term queer to refer to myself and identify as. I think labels can help a lot of people understand what they're feeling, but aren't really necessary in general. In particular, I identify as pansexual, so being attracted to any gender regardless of gender, where a lot of the times bisexual is uh, more identified as being attracted to genders, and gender has a um, particular interest in whether who you're attracted to versus just attraction regardless of gender with pansexual. I'm also demisexual, so I only form sexual attraction to people after feeling some kind of emotional bond to someone, versus sexual attraction with just looking at a person and not really knowing their personality. And then also, I am polyamorous, and so I find instead of being monogamous, where you want to be committed to one person, I view myself as more kind of like for myself in friendship, right? If I have a particular friend, that doesn't mean I don't have other friends. And so for me, if I'm dating someone, I want to always be free and open to date other people as well. And polyamory can look different for a lot of people. For some people, it's like open relationships. For me in particular, I view it as just wanting to commit to several different people and whoever I'm feeling attracted to and drawn to in my life, kind of in a way as you would with friendship, where even if you already have a close friend, that doesn't determine the other types of friendships that you have in your life. So I'm going to be going over my journey with my gender and sexuality. Oh yeah, gender. I'm a trans man as well. Um, but I've identified as different genders throughout my life, because I didn't quite know myself. And yeah, I'm going to go through my journey with both gender and sexuality chronologically. And also, before I get into it, just trigger warning for upsetting subjects regarding trauma and mental health as well that have influenced my journey with gender and sexuality. So, gender forms around the time of, I think it's like between 4 and 6. And by the time I was 4, unfortunately, I had gone through very severe SA for the first 3 years of my life. And what resulted in that, was a couple things. One of the things that it resulted in, for me, was intentional programming of DID. And I also, in a previous video, have gone through my entire mental and physical health journey, an overview of it. So I had many different alters, 4 of them, and it's interesting to note that all 4 of the alters that I had or have now, they're much more integrated, specifically in this last year, that I kind of went through a period where I really allowed myself to see my alters very fully. I've only been aware I've had DID for the last like 3 years. And once I did, they started integrating with that not really being my intention. However, all these alters I really identified like as being women, or, at the time of being very young girls. And I never really, at a young age, like, in elementary school, I never really thought about gender too much. I think the most I thought about feeling uncomfortable with it was, my favorite color has always been red. And I used to always pick like red paper for arts and crafts, and sometimes the boys would comment and say, "Oh, you're picking a boy's color." So that's about the most uncomfortable thing I went through, um, like in elementary school, like about gender. Um, I have always been just a very feminine person, hyper feminine person. I was in beauty pageants and did ballet from the age of 4 to 18. And I've loved dresses, I've loved dressing up, I love makeup, and so all those things, I just was a very feminine person. And it's funny looking back now, like as a queer trans man, that I realize, like looking at pictures of myself, I'm just very flamboyant. And if I was, born as the gender that I am, that I would have just really looked like, a gay boy as a child, which makes me really happy. But not really having that connection that I was just a really feminine boy. I just didn't really question my gender at this time. And a large part of that is because one of the alters I have is a people pleaser. And so, and another one is very depressed and suicidal. So I didn't really want to live. I just wanted to make other people around me happy, like as a to do in the meantime thing, while I didn't really want to be here. And so I didn't really think about myself. I didn't really think about what made me happy. I really only thought about like what made other people happy for the main part. And then in terms of sexuality at a younger age, unfortunately, because of the essay that I went through, one of the ramifications was really intense, intrusive thoughts that were sexually inappropriate. And because of this, I just thought and I didn't remember the essay either. As soon as I turned 4 and all the alters solidified, I completely forgot all the memories. So I didn't know that happened to me, and I just thought I was like born with very like impure thoughts, because again, they're very sexually inappropriate thoughts, and I had no one talking to me about what sexuality or sex was at all. I realized like it had to do something with like romance or kissing or marriage was like the furthest I understood until like 5th grade, when I was explained like in Flash what sex ed was. So when I was younger, I had like crushes on boys like in my class. I never really realized I was having crushes on girls. I just thought that I wanted to like be them or was jealous of them. But I didn't realize that gay people were a thing at this time. I had no exposure. So I did have crushes on boys, but I never wanted to talk about it, because I just viewed sexuality, or at least my thoughts on what I thought was sexuality, as very wrong and impure, because they were inappropriate thoughts, and I thought my thoughts were me. And so I never wanted to talk about my crushes with anyone, even the people I trusted the most, because I thought I was just a bad person. Yeah. So then moving more on to things like changed more when I hit puberty, when I was like 14. And also when I was 15, I started going on the internet. And so I had exposure to other things than I was talking about with, the other people in my life. So in a gendered sense, while I'd always enjoyed like dressing up for ballet and for the performances we did, and for the beauty pageants as kids, I never wore makeup or did my hair outside of my activities. And also I really loved my hair, and I'm trying to grow out like the back part of it again, because it's, for most of my childhood, was like down to my waist, and I really loved my hair. And that was like part of my uncomfortability, and with gender as well, and just really with, I guess, my self-concept, is that presenting as a girl and as a woman, throughout my childhood, I was very regularly praised for my appearance, which I felt good about, because I felt like it meant I was worth something as a person, that I had value, and that even though I didn't want to live, I was making other people happy. And so I felt like I was offering something. I would just often get complimented on my hair or my eyes or my body in general, which did not help in terms of my just body dysphoria and things like eating disorders. because it felt like the thinner I was, then the better of a person I was, which was just very harmful. And so when I started high school, I started wearing makeup because I really wanted to, and I thought it was really cool, but I felt very insecure about it. I would put on like lip gloss in the car, being driven to school, and then like wipe it off before I walked in the doors. So it probably wasn't until like the end of ninth grade that I was wearing makeup and not wiping it off in the car, because I really wanted to. I just also, because I never really wanted to live, again, was just set in at a very early age because of my trauma. Um, I didn't really want to be perceived. I especially didn't want to be perceived as like sticking out or different from other people. But I also felt very uncomfortable because I didn't feel like myself. So I started watching some of the things I was watching on YouTube at this time that I really enjoyed were drag queens, and I started watching RuPaul's Drag Race, and now I knew gay people were a thing, and I was like, this is incredible. Like, I had no idea, man. This is great. But it wasn't until the end of high school that, even though I was very drawn to the queer community, I didn't think I was queer. I thought I was straight, and I thought I was a cis woman, until I was like 17. So, um, yeah, but I started watching queer people online, and I thought it was so amazing, particularly drag queens, because they were men. For the most part, the exposure I had at the time, they're mostly men who wore really extravagant makeup and were trying to look like women, but weren't trying to, like, a lot of them weren't trying to actually be perceived like as a woman. Like, they're like, I'm a man and I'm dressing as a woman. I was like, that's so cool. That feels so much like me. Like, and I started putting on a lot of makeup. Unfortunately, some of it was because I had a lot of acne and I was very insecure, and so I put on a very heavy foundation because of insecurity. But the rest of my makeup, I like to do like very colorful and big, like eyeshadow and makeup looks, and it made me feel really happy. But it also, like, in retrospect, like looking back, it made me feel happy because I felt more like a drag queen. I felt more like a man wearing makeup than at the time I was a girl, rather than feeling like a girl trying to be feminine. And since I am a feminine man, it just felt so much more comfortable. And while I hadn't particularly like picked out my clothes like up until this point, I started really enjoying like what I was wearing. And so every day to school, I was very lucky because it wasn't there was only one time in my entire high school career at the very end when like some authority figure changed, but I never got dress coded, so that was wonderful for my what I wanted to wear. And I would just show up, just wearing very revealing things every day, crop tops and short skirts, and I had like 4 to 6 inch heels that I wore most days. And I was just very happy with this. I felt very much more myself. I felt much more comfortable in my skin. Um, and I just felt very happy. Again, there's a lot of parts of me that felt insecure and uncomfortable as well, like being perceived. But I'm like, at least I feel like I can breathe a bit more and I feel a bit more myself in terms of gender presentation, which I didn't really understand at that time, like in retrospect. So going back to sexuality, at this time, I didn't really consider sexuality in general. I think in general, like, sometimes people's attraction to who they're actually attracted to doesn't match what they enjoy watching in private in terms of sexual content. And so I thought that was just the case for me because I would, at the time, enjoy watching more queer things as sexual content I was consuming. But I didn't really understand. And I also got really sad at the time because I'm attracted. I realized like some of the people who I felt a connection to, like, online, that I was watching, um, I realized were, like, gay men. And I'm like, but that doesn't make sense because I'm not a gay man. I'm like, I must just find them attractive, though. And I didn't really put much past, but, like, made me really sad. Not because I wanted to, like, date those people. I never have really, like, imagined myself dating people I didn't know in person. It more just, it made me feel sad, though, and I didn't understand why there was a disconnect, because again, I didn't realize that I was a man at this time. I just felt really confused. So more at, oh yeah, and also during this time, I think it, I don't know if it, yeah, really started more at 17 either, but in terms of being polyamorous, I was watching this content on YouTube. I think the channel was called Sexplanations, and I thought it was really cool because unfortunately, the educational system, at least here in the U.S., does not, in my opinion, teach sex ed very well, especially for people with female anatomy. I think it's really messed up that they, in fifth grade, can tell you that, you know, a penis can get an erection, but you can't even say that the clitoris also gets an erection, even if you're even in 12th grade. It's something you couldn't talk about until college, and something I wasn't even aware of, and that makes me really mad. And so I was really enjoying this channel for educational reasons, and I found myself really interested in sex ed, and very upset that it's been such a taboo subject in general, to the point of making people feel bad about sex and bad about sexuality. Um, and something that this channel did was also, like, explore different kinks or different types of relationships. And I thought this was really wonderful. And I'd never really been encouraged to, like, think about what I would enjoy. Because also up until this point, I hadn't had any romantic or sexual, I hadn't dated anyone. And so it was really interesting. And so I would think about, just in theory, what I would like, and that was really helpful. And I realized that I was polyamorous, and that for me, at least, just being with one person, for me, it didn't really make much sense. It felt very limiting. It felt very, very trapping, in that I would always want to be able to explore other types of romantic and sexual relationships when and if other people come into my life. And again, for me in particular, I realized I do and did want very, like, strong commitments to people. It's just I never really envisioned myself being with just one person. Like, if that were the case and I wasn't interested in anyone else, that's fine, but I never would have wanted it to be of, and you couldn't ever in the future become interested in someone else. So when I was 17, a lot changed in my mental health at that time, again, which I explain more in a different video of my mental health. Because of that, it wasn't until I was 17 that I realized I had depression and anxiety, and PTSD. And that really changed things a lot for me. And I was a lot sadder in general, because I realized it wasn't just the circumstances anymore, that this had, like, permanently affected me. And around this time, and by the time I was 18, I realized that these things about myself, at least that I was trans, and that I was polyamorous. I didn't realize I was demisexual till later in life. At the time, like, I identified, like, at 17, I identified as a trans man. I started looking into, HRT and different surgeries, and just was really into researching about it, and really excited to transition in my life. But I also still had no will to live, no plan for life. I didn't want to be here, so it more just seemed like a pipe dream of, like, yeah, if I ever want to live, I'll do that, I guess, to feel good in myself. But I genuinely didn't care about feeling good in myself. And so at this time, when I was 19, I did start dating people. I'm 28 now, and I dated people until I was 25. Um, and so, yeah, I had like 6 years of like dating experience, and I had several relationships where I felt I was in love with people. I had a handful of relationships that we dated for a few weeks and things just kind of fizzled out. I never felt an emotional attraction. And then quite a few more people that I just saw sexually once or twice. So that's kind of been my dating history. And what I realized is that, you know, some of the people I was with were very accepting of me being trans, and some of them weren't. And unfortunately, I was very much people pleasing. And also, also what I thought I had to do in life, like just as a like checking things off the list, was I thought I had to, well, get married, and I thought I just might like get married to different people. But I also thought I had to have kids. At this time in my life, I don't think I ever want to give birth biologically. I might like adopt kids later in life. But I realize I could have kids probably if I like stop HRT for, I think it's like 6 months, and then you could have kids and then get back on it. But just not something I'm very consciously thinking of at this time. But yeah, unfortunately, I was just people pleasing a lot in all my relationships, really. It's not really something I stopped doing until about 3 years ago, just in general with everyone and everything in my life. And I realized, yes, that I thought I had to have kids. And so I didn't want to transition medically or socially. And a large part of the reason I didn't want to transition socially is because I just felt I looked really feminine, and unfortunately for me, I had just a very large chest, like a triple D size chest. And so regardless of the binders I was wearing or things, like I just still looked very feminine. Not again, not feminine because I'm a very feminine person. I looked like I had a female body. Um, and I just had a very high voice as well, so I didn't feel comfortable socially transitioning, so I hadn't. And yeah, I started transitioning about 2 years ago now, a little over, and I'm just so happy. But yeah, so I thought I had to have kids. I thought I wanted to have kids because I just was like, that's what you do in life. And I love kids. I love being around kids, so I thought that's just what I was gonna do. And so I thought I was gonna wait to transition until I had kids. And so I thought I was just gonna transition later in life. So I wasn't really trying to change. So I was just uncomfortable. I was uncomfortable. I wasn't being my true self because I was holding off for having kids because it was something I thought I had to do in my life. But also what was happening was some of the people that I was with weren't very comfortable with me being trans and just viewed me more as a woman. And so what was going on because of that, and like just some issues with how I was viewing myself and my mental health for a while, like even though I identified as a trans man at 17, for a few years there I more identified just as non-binary, like with and trigender, so as a woman, a man, and a gender. So like a man, because I am a man. A woman I viewed as like politically as a woman is what I was considering it, because like I'd been perceived as a woman my entire life, so all my lived experiences were being perceived as a woman. I don't know. And then I also viewed myself as a gender, so a lack of gender, just in terms of like uh just in terms of like a sociological sense, seeing things as gender as a social construct and the importance of that and detaching from that, it felt important to me. I don't really see myself as that anymore. I really just see myself as a trans man. And also, I'm not too educated about the term, but I know some people now go by trans masculine or trans mask. And at least for me, I prefer trans man for myself, because again, I view myself as a feminine man, and trans mask to me just sounds as like trans masculine. I'm not trying to be masculine. So at least for me, I just like trans man. Yeah, so that's kind of what was going on with my gender, like throughout my relationships. Oh yeah, and then in terms of my sexuality, I unfortunately, because, well, part of it was again this me being a people pleaser and trying to put down my needs for other people's wants. And I also just I felt very lonely at the time. I felt very desperate for love. I just wanted any type of connection. I had never wanted to live in my life. I had no desire to continue living. I just wanted to feel something. I wanted to feel loved. I never felt worthy of love, and I didn't really care if it hurt me. I didn't really care what it felt like as long as someone wanted me. And it was just a really terrible mindset to be in relationships in at the time. And so I did get into relationships where, while I was upfront about being polyamorous, the people that I was with were like, oh, well, I'm monogamous, so we're going to have a monogamous relationship. And I was like, okay, that's fine. And it was not fine with me, but I just wanted to be with someone. And so it was very unfulfilling for me. Again, not necessarily because I wasn't enjoying being with that person, but because that's not my sexuality. That's not how I find attraction to people. And if I'm feeling very stuck and restricted, I'm not enjoying my time with that one person as much. Now, in terms of my sexuality as being demisexual, again, not forming sexual attraction until like an emotional connection is formed. I didn't realize this until after I stopped dating people. So I haven't dated anyone in about 3 years now. And I'll talk about that next. And it's just been very wonderful for me. And I realized it because there was someone I hadn't watched online before, but I started watching online, and I really enjoyed their content in like an educational way, and their morals. And I wasn't initially like attracted to this person. And in general, I didn't realize it at the time that what I thought was attraction was more just like aesthetic attraction, more just like, this person I think is very beautiful or striking or interesting. But it was more so like how I would view like nature or like a house, or just something I find beautiful but not something I'm attracted to sexually. Which I didn't realize before, that there's just been very few times in my life that I've actually experienced sexual attraction. So anyway, so there's this person that I was watching online, and I really liked their content and their thoughts. It was very like educationally stimulating to me, and I really aligned with a lot of their morals. And the more I watched this person, I realized I wasn't before, but I think I'm actually really sexually attracted to this person. And this person also had an OnlyFans. And so I knew this before, but I didn't have any desire to watch that because I wasn't attracted to them. And I never really been attracted to someone online who had an OnlyFans before. But because I emotionally related to this person so much morally with the content they were sharing, I formed an emotional connection. And so I became sexually attracted to this person, and I did look at their sexual content, and I'm like, yeah, I really am sexually attracted to this person. And it made me realize that the sexual content I'd been watching up until that point, for the most part, just random people I do not know, that I never was actually sexually attracted to the people. I was simply aroused by the contents, like the situations that were going on. So I don't know how that is for most people who are not demisexual. Um, and it also made me realize that, in my dating history, I really only was sexually attracted to, those handful of people that I like was in love with. Um, and I really only dated those people because I formed an emotional connection with them first. Or not even first. Some of them I did start, just doing sexual things with, but I dated them long term because I formed an emotional connection. Um, but it made me sad because it made me realize um, that for a lot of the people who I only had sexual encounters with, I wasn't sexually attracted to them. And I was more just doing this for the sex itself, which is fine if that's what you want to do, and that was what I wanted to do at the time. It's just I feel sad because I didn't realize that I wasn't experiencing sexual attraction. Um, so yeah, it was just been a very interesting journey, and I feel just relieved that there's like a label for this and that there's information on it, because it wasn't something, while I knew it existed like as a teenager, I never really considered it for myself. So yeah, in the last 3 years, I took a step back from dating because in any aspect, because I realized that, as I mentioned before, my dating up until that point had been from a place of like desperation, a place of just this really deep longing, as I felt like I needed people to feel good about myself. And so I really just wanted to build up a stronger relationship with myself, because I never again wanted to feel like I was people pleasing, like I was putting other people's wants above my needs. I never wanted to not have boundaries in relationships. And I just really wanted to focus on my inner healing. Um, so about yeah, it was about 2 years after that, so like a year ago, almost exactly a year ago, where I felt like I pretty much like completely detached from feeling like I needed to be in romantic or sexual relationships again. To the point I wasn't even really thinking about if that's what I wanted, but I rather was thinking, and also during this time, about a year and a half ago, I went through a spiritual awakening as well, which probably influenced some of that as well in my thoughts, and just more balance within myself. And so I got to this point about a year ago, 2 years into not dating anyone for the first time in my adult life, right? For the first time since I started dating. And I felt good. I felt fine. And I'm like, honestly, if I go the rest of my life until I die of old age, because also I had really started like actually wanting to live in the last 3 years. Like, I actually want to be here regardless what's going on in my life. I want to keep going. I'm going to keep going, and not even just keep going and surviving. Like, I am going to thrive. I am going to, and I have in this last year and a half particularly, completely changed my mental health. I am in an amazing place with my mental health compared to where I was. And I've just built these really healthy foundational roots, and ripped out all the programming and socialization that I had, literally since I was born, and very heavily since the age of 4. And in large part, this contributed to how I felt about dating, and that about a year ago, I felt completely fine that, like, if I never date anyone again, I think I'll still be fulfilled and satisfied, because I feel so fulfilled and satisfied within myself right now. Um, and once I detached from like needing to be in a relationship, because before it was just like, oh, I just want to be with anyone. I just want to feel those good feelings. But I realized I'm like, it felt good in a detached sense, that I was detaching from myself, and I only want to connect with people if I'm connected to myself. I don't ever want to try to connect with someone by detaching from myself, because really what's happening is further detachment. So about like a month after, I came to this like really solid realization of like, for the first time, like I feel so chill. Like even if I never date again, like that's fine. Um, and so I got, about a month later, I started like having crushes on people again. I was like, whoa, this hasn't happened for, at that point, like 2 years. This is really wild. And it wasn't something I expected. And I think it was because I came to such a healthy place of detachment, so that I was detached from needing a relationship so that I could connect to wanting a relationship. Because wanting things is really beautiful, but needing things is this energy of lack, but wanting is an energy like of an abundance. um yeah, and so now, a year later in my life, I've went through some ups and downs in terms of when I realized I was experiencing an attraction again, kind of these pushes and pulls of like, oh, I don't want to feel like I need people again, but I do want things. And so particularly in these last few months, I've really been thinking about and allowing myself to think about again, what do I want um, in my dating life? What is it that I desire? And that wasn't something in the last, previously, like in the last 3 years, I really even allowed myself to think about, because I was just more like, I'm going to detach from that. I'm going to heal myself. Because, like, even if I am going to be with people again, because it was just a really, for the most part, really terrible, traumatic time of me dating people. And I was like, I'm going to protect my peace. So I didn't really, even last 3 years, like, think about what do I want in relationships, because I was like, I would much rather be happy than ever be upset like that again. Um, but now in these last few months, I was like, I'm really thinking about what I want in life, and longevity, and going forward in all aspects of my life. And I realized I wanted to revisit, what I do want in partnership and in my relationships. And I'm feeling at a really steady and solid place now, where I feel very open to love in a very receptive way, but not in a trying to go out and find people way where I was before. I used to be like on a lot of dating apps, which again I think is wonderful and beautiful if that's what you want to do. It's just not what I'm feeling called to do at this time, where I still feel like I don't need to be dating people, but I know that is something that I deeply want, and that's, okay and beautiful to want those things as well. And so yeah, that's where I am now. I realize that I'm demisexual, that I'm polyamorous, that I'm pansexual, um, and that I'm a trans man. Yeah, I realize I didn't talk as much about being um, pansexual. For me, I've dated men and women during the time I was dating. And yeah, it wasn't, I kind of just realized that more around the age of 17, that I only thought I was having like crushes on I only thought I was having crushes on men, because I didn't identify my crushes on women as crushes. I thought I just wanted to be them because I thought I was a woman. Um and then also I mentioned that I had very severe intrusive thoughts that were sexually inappropriate of nature, starting at the age of 4. And I never really allowed myself to think about them because I felt very ashamed. I thought they came from nowhere. I thought they were me. It was very terrifying. And I talk about this more in my mental health video, and do plan to do a video just on intrusive thoughts as well. But in terms of my sexuality, about at the like end of spring, beginning of summer, so like 4 6 months ago, I spent a couple months allowing myself to hear every intrusive thought, not just the sexually inappropriate ones, but every single one. And I never really allowed myself to hear them before because it's uncomfortable, it hurts. But I allowed myself to hear all of them really, really loud, and just constantly. I wasn't tuning them out because before I was, because I hated them. But now I just I let them flow through me, get as loud as they are. It's just so kind, caring, and compassionate to myself. And after about a month and a half, like 2 months, the thoughts went away. And I've had these thoughts my whole life, at least since the age of 4. I thought I was going to, and also they got worse when I remembered my sexual trauma, when I was 21. And so I thought they were just going to stay the same or get worse for my entire life. But for the last, yeah, like 3 to 4 months, I've had almost no intrusive thoughts, in general, but in particular that have been of a sexually inappropriate nature. And that just felt so freeing to me because while, yeah, and I guess that's another thing. Like, I really viewed, like I said, like me being a sexual person as bad because of those thoughts. And so now it's been very freeing to separate, and that if I am having sexual thoughts that, again, are not inappropriate, that are not, wrong morally, that I can really embrace them instead of feeling this automatic shame that was tied to the inappropriate, intrusive thoughts that were not my own. And so, with those quieted down, I feel like I can really celebrate my sexuality and things that make me happy in that regard. And I feel just so much more abundantly clear and free, and just really ready in the right time to open up to love. And yeah, so I wanted to share my story with my gender and sexuality, and hopefully educate people, on different types of genders and sexualities, share my personal story, and just know that things change over time. Not necessarily your gender or sexuality, but especially your perspective on things like that. And that I know, even in, a year time, 10 years time, that I'll have a new perspective on where I am now. And knowing that things change and genuinely can get better is so encouraging to me, since things in my life had just kept getting worse and worse. So for anyone watching, I wish you, a good experience and journey with your gender and sexuality. And I look forward to making more videos about my mental and physical health journeys in general, on this channel. So thank you for watching, and I look forward to talking with you about another topic soon.